We got work to do.
Welcome to Highway to Hell, a supernatural podcast. I'm Christine.
And I'm Kristen.
And today we're talking about Season 6, Episode 20, The Man Who Would Be King. And I was thinking about finding a longer description, but I felt like the one on Supernatural Wiki summed it up just as well as anything would. And we're going to talk about it anyway, but this just says that this is the episode about where Castiel tells his story. That's all we get.
Yeah.
And he does tell his story.
Finally.
Yeah. We were just saying this. It was so funny that we were just kind of complaining about not getting more about what's going on with Castiel, and they haven't really talked about that so much or brought it up as much as they should. And then we suddenly get this whole episode that's like, here you go. Here's everything.
Yeah. And it's, God, again, like my memory, we might as well both be newbies to this entire experience because all of this I completely forgot. So it was like I was living it for the first time as well as you. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, it was good. Actually, I thought this was a really good episode. It was done well. It was directed and written by Ben Edlund.
Yes, we love Ben Edlund.
Yeah, and he wrote and directed it.
Well, that's so funny. That I think he did an amazing job. And this is the guy that has worked on Firefly, has worked on Angel, which you started watching again. I'm so excited for you. I can't wait till you get to season 5.
I'm excited for me too. I just decided what is wrong with me? I just need to finish it so I, can check that box because I will always regret it if I don't. And it's just a good show to start over and binge. It's been a long time since I've watched it at all. So, heck yeah, starting that up.
Very excited. I can't wait. You're going to have to update us once you're done and give us your thoughts.
I'll give you updates.
But yeah, he did an amazing job. It was extremely cinematic. The moment in the beginning when Cass looks at the camera and he's like, I'm going to tell you my story, or he says something like that. Yeah. It was like, oh, please do. We've been waiting for it, Cass.
Yeah, totally. That really gets to the viewer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was pretty exciting too. It was, definitely that feeling of oh, finally. Okay, go for it. So this episode aired on May 6th, 2011. There were a couple of songs in the episode. One plays when Cass goes to visit Crowley and he's dissecting Eve and torturing the vampire in the corner. And it's just kind of like a bluesy sounding, real laid back song. And then another one is one that I can't pronounce, but I think it's Opus 314 by Johann Strauss II. For some reason, they chose that song. There might be something to that I'm not aware of. But maybe it just sounded like hell, like people standing in line and what you would listen to in hell. Because it plays during that scene when Crowley takes Cass to his version of hell and everybody's standing in line.
Interesting. I don't think I even recalled there being any music behind that scene.
Me either. And if I think about it, I've even seen the episode twice and I still can't really recall the music in that scene. I feel like it should have elevator music playing.
Yes.
Yeah,
it really should be just soft tunes,
Yeah, exactly. But the first song that plays when Crowley is torturing that vampire is called Me and Mrs. Jones. And it's by Billy Paul. And this came out in 1972, and it was a song about an extramarital affair, about this man in a marriage and his lover. So I don't know. I didn't feel like the lyrics really had anything to do with the scene. It was probably just it sounded like something that went along with it.
Yeah.
Me and Mrs. Jones.
So yeah, that's all we had for music. Pretty subtle.
Yeah, and it's funny because I was just looking at Ben Edlund's credits, and he only directs one other episode in season 7, even though he's written like a lot of episodes up until season 8. Um, but that's surprising to me because he did such a great job. I loved it, and
That is
so
surprising. Yeah, I think especially from this episode, we can tell that he's a good director.
yeah, yeah, it definitely works. Um, But yeah, I think he did an amazing job. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts, like especially in this beginning scene about who he's talking to. Who's Cass talking to? Is he talking to us? Or
Yeah, so when I first saw this scene, I immediately thought he's talking to God. Um,
mm,
but then it was maybe a little more of a question when the scene transitioned and he like looked at the camera head on, like
mhm.
looking at you and breaking down that fourth wall. I was like, oh, is he talking to us? That definitely made it seem like it was directed at the viewer. But my first thought was that he was communing with God.
Yeah. I don't think that it's I don't know. Maybe it works that it's from Ben Edlund just because he's like the part of what becomes Chuck, essentially the prophet, and so who's this meta fourth wall breaking character itself, and so
Hmm.
it's almost like Ben is Chuck in this moment. He's breaking that fourth wall with this story as well. Um,
Yeah, totally.
it totally
And
works.
I don't know if it's like more clearly going to reveal itself in this next episode, but we talked about at the beginning of the season the title card and how it has the glass breaking.
Mm.
And I still don't know exactly what that's supposed to symbolize, but when Cass was looking at the camera, I was like, oh, is it like a fourth wall breaking? But, that's like way out there because that was just one moment. So I don't know. Just throwing that out there again for consideration. I haven't decided what that's about yet.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, we haven't gotten any other answers yet, so
Mm-mm. No, we haven't. So we better get something in the last episode.
right.
That's about it. That's all that I had before we start the episode. You ready?
Mhm.
Okay. So we have an episode recap and our then segment. And the flashbacks cover when everybody did their part to avoid the apocalypse. We get some kind of flashbacks of, when the hole to hell opened and Sam and everyone got sucked through. Um, and then a flashback of when Castiel was uh, brought back and people were talking about how he's like, quote, the new sheriff in town up in heaven. And then Cass talking about what do they call? I meant to look this up actually. The ring of fire that they trap angels with. Is that a thing? Like, what is that called?
What do they call it? I mean, don't they
Like
just
an angel
call it?
trap?
Yeah. I think they just call it like a ring of fire. Like I think wait, hold on. Demon Devil's Trident? No. No. Holy oil? They use holy
Maybe
holy
that's it.
oil for that, right?
And then set it on fire.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So the holy oil fire ring. We get a flashback of that. like when they did it on Raphael.
Mhm.
And then we get a flashback of Death telling Dean that souls are more valuable than he can even imagine.
Mm.
Eve just recently telling Sam and Dean that Crowley is alive. And then Crowley talking to Cass at the end of that episode and them working together.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they packed a lot into the recap to remind us of.
Which is funny because we're kind of gonna get flashbacks of all of that anyway in this episode, you
Yeah.
know?
Mm-hmm. Like every single piece of it.
Yeah.
So the episode starts and we open to Cass sitting on a bench in like a beautiful park. There's snow around him and he's just talking to himself. And he is kind of like reminiscing about like what he's doing right now, you know. And there's this really cool effect where the camera starts on, it's like facing him and it starts looking over one shoulder and then it passes across his face to the right and it creates a whole other scene on the other side of his shoulder. And so he like turns around and it's like, okay, this is the beginning of his story.
Mhm.
And he uh, talks about the beginning of life. He says, you know, I remember a little gray fish crawling out of the water and an older brother telling me, don't step on the fish, Castiel. There are big plans for that fish. He remembers the Tower of Babel and also the most remarkable event. And it's remarkable because it never happened. The apocalypse was averted by two boys, an old drunk, and a fallen angel. And they fought for freedom, and all that was left was freedom and choice. But then Cass wonders if he's made the wrong choice. And he says, let me tell you a story. And that's when he looks right in the camera and says, let me tell you everything. Well, okay, cool.
Yeah, we exactly. We would like to
Go
know.
ahead.
Yes, what's going on?
Yeah. So we cut to Dean driving the Impala and he's by himself and it's at night. And suddenly Cass shows up in the passenger seat next to him and totally freaks Dean out. But then Dean asks him about Crowley and if he's, you know, how it's going, if he's found him. And Cass says that he's still looking for him. Then Dean says that he also hasn't found anything. And he tells Cass that he's going to go hook up with Sam, who's tracking a djinn in Omaha. And then Dean gets serious and he's like, Cass, you'll call if you get into any real trouble, right? And then Cass just leaves. We hear a flutter of wings and he's gone. So then we follow Cass. He's walking into a room where Crowley has Eve's body on a table and it's completely opened up. It's like he's doing a full autopsy. He's just poking around in there.
Yeah, I didn't even recognize her at first. She
Yeah.
is so like mangled.
Mhm. Yeah. Her like chest is open and the top half of her head is off. And
Yeah.
it's pretty gruesome. And he also shows us that he's like, this is the weirdest thing. It's like, even though she's dead, she keeps laying eggs. And he like pulls out a handful of these like little ball looking eggs.
Like fish eggs almost.
Yeah, exactly.
It was weird. I thought like okay, because we knew that she was a mother and she's like creating these monsters, but does that mean that she's like laying these eggs?
No, what are the eggs?
Is
I
she
don't know.
birthing them?
I don't know. They're just like hanging out inside her chest cavity. I don't know what the
It's
deal is
very,
with that.
very strange. Like now I'm just gonna be thinking of like these vampire hybrids coming out of her, like her birthing him.
Ew. So then we look over across the room, and Crowley has a vampire in chains and like strapped to this gurney thing on the other side of the room. And Crowley's like, watch this. And he stabs Eve's brain with a knife. And suddenly the vampire goes crazy. Like he's in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And which is really interesting. And Cass is like, what's the value of that? And Crowley says, aside from the erotic value, nothing. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, Corelli is into some kinky stuff.
Uh-huh.
But, that I don't know that they answered this later on, and I was kind of waiting for it, but does that mean that like vampires everywhere felt that?
I was
You know?
wondering the exact same thing. They did not answer that. I
Yeah.
don't know if it's like, I don't know, supposed to just be the ones near her or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I had that question too.
Yeah. But I was like, whoa, if all of them can feel that, that's crazy.
Yeah, then that's surprising that they're not dead.
Hmm.
Like because there's been that theory before too, and I think we talked about this in the Twilight episode. But there's been that theory in like vampire movies where you kill the sire, and then
Right.
the baby, the vampire child, is dead also.
Hmm.
Um, but I guess it didn't work here exactly. So.
Yeah, apparently not, because we still have vampires. But
Mhm.
yeah, we could use a little more info on that. That was interesting. So let me see. Crowley's pissed, and he tells Cass that Eve can't lead them to purgatory anymore because she's dead. And he's pissed that Sam and Dean killed her. Crowley also knows that Cass went to talk to Dean. He says something like, I can smell that Impala all over you. And he's pissed about that because he heard that Sam and Dean are hunting him down. And he's like, Cass, sounds like you have a bit of a conflict of interest here. And so as soon as he says that, Cass kind of waxes eloquent again, and he's like, it's true. My interests were at conflict, and we're kind of in his thoughts again.
Mhm.
And he talks about how he's protecting Sam and Dean. They're his friends, and they taught him all about standing up for yourself and standing up for what's right. And we get flashbacks to the apocalypse when Cass, I forget who he was saying this to, he called them an ass butt. It was classic.
Yes. Amazing.
And yeah, it is amazing. So, just standing on that right side. And he is thinking about how they stopped Armageddon, but it was at a terrible cost. And he said, so as soon as that happened, I knew what I had to do. And Cass tells us about how he brought Sam back from hell.
Yeah. So that's news. It took me a
Yes.
second. Um,
Hmm.
but then I was like, oh shit, and they had definitely asked Cass to like figure out like who brought him back, and
Hmm.
it would be very interesting to go back and see Cass's answer, because I think he was just like, well, fuck if I know. I have no idea.
Right. That would be very interesting to go back. Because I feel like they kind of harped on it for a while too. Like they wanted his help, and he was like, no.
Yeah, like we can't. I can't do anything about it, or like
Right.
there's too much going on. And that, it kind of does explain why he was so shifty and like, no, I can't help you guys out, and I'm too busy for you,
Yeah.
because he's been lying to them since the very beginning.
Yeah. Which sucks.
Yeah, definitely. They thought they could
Um,
trust him.
yeah, for obvious reasons. They've been through a lot together. So I don't know, Cass, you got some splaining to do. But we find out that he brought Sam back from hell, and what he says is, um, basically he says at the time I was like feeling really good about myself. I had a lot of pride, and he's like, but I shouldn't have had that because, of course, I hadn't truly raised Sam, not all of him.
Mhm.
And so then he kind of alludes to Sam not having a soul and says that that should have been a warning to him. So I don't know. I gotta just go ahead and bring this up later in the episode. the question is brought up of whether or not Cass brought Sam back on purpose without his soul. And I kind of think no.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it was done on purpose. I think what he's talking about is like as far as like he should have this should have been his warning is like the hubris. I think, and he does talk about that later on, right? Or in this moment, perhaps
I
he
think
talks
in
about.
this moment, and this was actually, I agree with you. I think this was, I watched it a second time. And when I watched this part the second time, it kind of told me that he didn't mean for it to happen that way. Like he didn't do it on purpose.
Right.
Because it was like he brought Sam back and he didn't have a soul, and that was bad. So that should have been the warning for him.
Hmm.
Like, oh, I shouldn't continue because this isn't going right.
Yeah, like he's just gonna end up fucking things up even more. Um, and also just that he is, I don't know, that like by him bringing Sam back, it's an exercise of his powers that ended up going sour. And I think that, I don't know, I think that this episode obviously is really, it's a lot focused a lot on his powers and him trying to increase his powers. And I don't know that we've seen the repercussions of that yet, but I think we will
Hmm.
in the
I wouldn't be
next.
surprised
Yeah,
after this episode.
right.
Yeah, so that didn't go according to plan, obviously.
Hmm.
Um, so then cutting back to where Cass is with Crowley, Crowley tells Cass that he's going to kill Sam and Dean. And Cass puts his foot down and he's like, no, your job now is to find purgatory. And then he says, if you don't, then we'll both die again and again until the end of time. And he says the Winchesters won't get Crowley. Like he basically tells him, like, don't worry about it. And he leaves. So that was kind of interesting because I'm not sure exactly what fate awaits them. Like he says they're going to die again and again until the end of time. Like, is that just because, I don't know, like when Raphael would take over again, that's what you expect your punishment to be? I'm not sure.
I guess so. I think that's what it's supposed to mean. That like Raphael's idea of hell, of a punishment, is just having to be killed over and over again, which
Mm-hmm.
reminds me of one of my favorite episodes of Angel. Um, can't wait till you get there. Season 5, I think. No, I don't know. But maybe it's season 3.
You're just going to
But
tell me all the good stuff is in season 5, so I make
I know, but what if you hate it? Oh my god. No, but it's,
it.
but yeah, I think that's what he's alluding to.
Hmm. I think
But
so too. That makes the most sense.
is Raphael still kicking? Yeah, right? I mean, is he?
So, good question, because when Castiel goes and like uses all those souls against him, what does he do to him? But then I thought, like, even now, I don't know, like Cass has still been talking about Raphael recently, right? Like he's the threat. Like,
Yeah. I Yeah, he's still a threat. I think because he's been talking about him in this whole time and the war, waging this war against Raphael. Maybe it was
right.
just like a flex. Like I thought he
I
took him
guess.
out, but maybe he was just like, "Ooh, look, like."
I guess, like smack.
Yeah. Like just a bitch slap, an angel bitch slap, and that's it.
It's me or him. Yeah, I guess so. But I was kind of wondering about that too because I don't know, 50,000 souls, it sounds like a lot. I don't know. I guess you can't get rid of an angel with that.
Yeah.
That was confusing. Um, so then we cut to Bobby and Sam, and they're at Bobby's house, and they have a demon named Red and caught in a devil's trap. in the living room. And apparently he's been posing as a hunter. He's been like rounding up monsters and taking down vampire nests and stuff like that. And Bobby calls him out on turning over the monsters to Crowley and working for Crowley. But Red says that Crowley's dead. And then Bobby throws holy water on him and he's like, no, Crowley's alive. But they ask him where Crowley is and Red won't talk. So Bobby stabs him in the thigh with the demon knife and just leaves him there because his hands are tied and he can't take it out. And so Dean had walked into the kitchen and Bobby and Sam go over to talk to him. And Dean tells them that he didn't tell Cass anything, so he doesn't know that they're getting close to finding Crowley. And it's also pretty obvious, like, Dean doesn't really care so much if Cass did something wrong because he still believes that he's not working with Crowley. He's trying to talk to Sam and Bobby about it because he doesn't feel comfortable with this whole plan and not trusting Cass. You know, he just can't believe that Cass would do something like that. And go ahead.
No, yeah. I mean, I could kind of tell something was up in the Impala when they were driving, and Dean, I mean, Jensen just always does an amazing job, and you could just see um that struggle within him where he's like lying to Cass, and obviously that it's kind of hurting him. But like he just really brings it out here where he's just it's almost like he's just begging them like no, please, like just give him the benefit of the doubt because of everything that they've been through, and of course, and everything that Cass has done for them. Um, but again, like I think there is that struggle. I feel like he is asking for that, but he doesn't truly believe it.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely got an inner struggle happening. And Sam understands and Bobby understands. They totally get it. And Sam says that he hopes they're wrong too. And then suddenly we see Cass standing in the background. And as the viewer, we understand that the guys can't see Cass. He's invisible, but he's like there watching their conversation. And then Bobby says, if there's even a slim chance that Cass is working with Crowley, that means they're dealing with a Superman who's gone dark side. It's a big deal. And they have to, quote, stock up on kryptonite. And Dean just looks really upset. And then we switch back to Cass speaking in his thoughts and speaking to the viewer. And he says, you know, we're watching Dean, and he says, the worst part of all of this was Dean trying so hard to be loyal, even though every instinct is telling him otherwise. So then Bobby goes back over to Red and finds out that he doesn't deal with Crowley. He deals with a dispatcher who's a demon named Ellsworth. So then we cut over to Ellsworth, and Cass is telling us about him, and he says, you know, if there's a Bobby Singer equivalent in demons, then it's Ellsworth. And it's like the exact equivalent. There's a fucking demon with like facial hair and a plaid shirt and a vest and a trucker hat sitting at a table with a line of phones and like multiple bowls of blood for demon calls.
It's good. The trucker hat especially got me, and the demon bowls rather than like.
I know, that was pretty perfect. It was so funny. And so he's like, you know, talking to some demons and like having these quick conversations, and he's like kind of mad and irritated. And then he gets off the call with a demon and a phone rings, and he picks it up, and his eyes are black at first, and then he blinks as he picks up the phone and they turn back to normal. And he's like, you know, FBI, this is Tommy speaking. So he's also posing as FBI, like Bobby. It was perfect.
So good.
I know. So let me see. Where did I leave off? So Cass is telling us about Ellsworth and the demons in this like demon den. And he said, you know, Sam and Dean and Bobby now know about Ellsworth, and they're going to track that here. And these demons would lead the boys to Crowley, and Crowley would kill them. So, in order to protect them, Cass shows up at this den where Ellsworth is and kills him and the other demons around him. And then he tells everyone, the audience, that he had no choice. He did it to protect the boys. Or to protect himself. He doesn't know anymore. And he just
Yeah.
kind of stands there, like listless and staring into the void.
Cass.
I know, man.
He knows he's doing wrong. Like what Dean says later on, like just the fact that he lied, he knows he's doing completely wrong.
Yeah, exactly. He knows better.
Yeah.
So, the boys and Bobby then show up at Ellsworth's, and the place is squeaky clean. No dead bodies, no nothing, which is suspicious to them.
Mm-hmm.
And let me see. Then Cass is telling us about how he remembers, quote, supposedly saving Sam. I think that's kind of another clue. He said, I supposedly saved Sam. And I think that's because he doesn't feel like he actually saved him because he didn't also get his soul.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And he said, when I supposedly saved Sam, I turned to heaven. Then we see Cass in this like really beautiful kind of like garden landscape, and it's kind of lightly raining. And he says, my favorite heaven, the one I favor, is the eternal Tuesday afternoon of an autistic man who drowned in a bathtub in 1953. And I
Very
love that.
specific. I know.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's just this man like out in his like backyard, basically. Just a very sunny day.
Yeah, flying a kite. And
Yeah.
it's a beautiful garden.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he turns and there are other angels meeting him there. This is like a flashback. And we've got Rachel and some other angels we don't know, and they're all in suits. And she's so amazed and surprised that Cass is back. And she's like, it's because of God. God got rid of Lucifer and he brought you back and he's chosen you to lead us, basically, is what she says. And Cass is like, no one leads us anymore. You're free to choose your own fates. And all the angels are like, what? But and then she says, what does God want? And Cass says, God wants you to have freedom. And she's like, to do what with it?
Yeah, what does he want us to do with it though?
But why?
Yeah, they're just so confused, which is
Yeah.
it's funny because it's very similar to like how Cass was in season
Yes.
4, right? Like
Yeah. When the boys got to him, he was like, what are you talking about?
yeah, it's insane. And this also like kind of and we see other forms of heaven later on, specifically where Raphael likes to hang out, but it kind of just show us or answer the question like what does heaven look like, because we were asking this entire time, like what is heaven like? And that's interesting that like for angels it's not something specific either. They have the choice to live within people's heavens as well.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah.
And that everyone has their own heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So then when Rachel's really confused about freedom and she asks what they would do with it, Cass says, if I had known then what I know now, I would have said that freedom is a length of rope and God wants you to hang yourself with it.
I wanted to remember that as I watch the episode and like tie it back and see like why does he feel that way?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I mean, I think just thinking about it, I think just generally he feels maybe like he's been given too much freedom
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of corrupted him.
Yeah, and I think too, as you're talking, I'm thinking about some of the parts of the episode where he talks about the choices he's had to make
Mhm.
and how he doesn't feel like he's made the right choice and he doesn't know if he's made the right choices.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I've had freedom, which is the freedom of choice, but I did the wrong thing with it or something.
Yeah, that's true. And he also, I don't know, it's tough. I think he's in such a terrible position because uh, I think he did have the best intentions in every
Sure.
choice. I think he led to me he led with like I need to protect heaven or I'm sorry, I need to protect the earth. I need to protect the Winchesters and all of that. It's because especially when Raphael says like I want to unleash Lucifer and Michael and get this apocalypse started up again. It's like it's kind
Hmm.
of that point where he was like, "Whoa, like no, I can't let this happen." Um so I don't know. I feel like that was his purpose that he was working against. Um, but I don't know, maybe at some point it starts to become a little bit self-serving, like I need this power in order to combat and resist this thing, but it does I don't know, that's a whole another philosophical discussion about like what that does to a person and whether that
Hmm.
is self-serving in the end for him to like want that power and do anything to get it in order to do something good, it's I don't know, it's tough,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I could see that. Um, and also, he kind of tells us about how I don't know, he was prideful, like I think he was kind of feeling like hot shit
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
had multiple people telling him that he'd been like chosen by God
Yes.
to come back and to lead and to do this. And so that could go to your head too. And you could feel like, oh well, this is what God wants me to do. I'm the chosen one.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, I agree with that too. Um and yeah, maybe I'll let you go on cuz maybe we see a little bit more of that in the rest of his story.
Sure. Let's see. So then as soon as Cass is done talking to the angels, he goes to see Raphael. And I love this part. It's so funny. He's walking around this heaven, and it's like an apartment made of rich mahogany with many leather bound books and some picture frames of like a painting, one of like this airplane, probably his private jet.
It's so weird. That airplane, it was a weird painting. I thought it was a
I
weird
thought so
choice.
too. And maybe, damn it, I should have actually researched it. There's probably a story to it because the other one, the other painting is, or portrait is this picture of George Bush in front of an American flag.
Oh
It was
man.
so funny. And so then Cash shows up and he's like, whose heaven is this? And Raphael says, Ken Lay. And I didn't remember who that was, but John was watching the episode with me. Ken Lay was the CEO, founder, and chairman of Enron.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So, major douchebag.
Yeah, I mean makes but he made it to heaven. That's crazy.
I know. So then Cass is like, I still question his admittance here. And I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
me
Well,
too.
that makes sense why because I just looked on the Supernatural wiki and it says former President George H.W. Bush attended the memorial service. So,
Ah, okay. Were they like buddies?
yeah, I guess so.
Um, and then Raphael says He's devout. It trumps everything. Is that how heaven works? If you're a devout Christian, it doesn't matter how much of a lowlife you are, you still get to heaven?
I mean, I
Is that what
guess,
he's
and
saying?
yeah, I think that's what he's saying, which, kind of goes along, I think, historically, with like Christianity, but I think it just
Sure, yeah. With like the
it
idea of heaven if you're a Christian.
exactly, but like I think it does kind of add on to like just the doucheness of Christianity in the show, like
Mhm.
what we've already seen with as even in season 4 with Raphael and Castiel following orders, they have to do things a certain way and all of that sort of thing. So I think it just adds to it like, oh yeah, on top of that, you just have to believe. And
You
that
can
that
be a billionaire asshole who screws people out of their lifetime
Mhm,
work and
pretty
money
much. Yep.
and still go to heaven. It's fine.
Uh-huh.
It's disappointing.
Yeah. Not in Cass's heaven, hopefully.
No, he goes to the eternal Tuesday afternoon of an autistic man. So in my notes, I put that quote from Raphael and then I was like, wow. So Raphael tells Cass that tomorrow he needs to come back and kneel to him and pledge allegiance to him as their new leader. Raphael wants to free Lucifer and Michael from their cage and continue fighting the apocalypse. And Cass is like, no, you can't do that. And Raphael's like, why? The angels aren't going to be against me. They were not built to go against this, they were built to follow. And then suddenly Raphael does something where he kicks Cass's ass, like he kind of gives him a bitch slap and sends him back to that Tuesday afternoon heaven. And Cass is like on the ground spitting up blood. He's like really kind of messed up. And Raphael is standing over him and he says to Cass that he is going to kneel to him or he will die. Shit, okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, at this point, Raphael is more powerful than Cass, which I think we've seen before, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
I agree. And I think there may have even been a time too where Castiel like mentioned that. Like he kind of like warned the guys, like, he's a huge power and is like has more power than me, basically.
Yes.
So then we cut back to the guys, Sam, Dean, and Bobby, and they're done doing a sweep of Ellsworth's place. And it is very clean. And they're like, well, what do we do now? And Dean wants to call Cass, but Sam and Bobby are not on board because they still don't trust him. And then Dean tries to convince them by, giving them this whole speech. He talks about how Cass has basically done so much for them. He has, what did he say? Something like been bloody and down on the mat without hesitation for them, like every time. And they've been able to count on him and that they owe him the benefit of the doubt. So Sam calls Cass, but he doesn't appear. And then Dean tries, and he doesn't appear. And suddenly we see Cass standing right next to them, but he's invisible to them again. And he said, but I didn't reveal myself because they would have questions that I couldn't answer, and I was afraid. Then suddenly, two demons just come out of the woodwork and attack Sam and Dean. And it also takes Cass by surprise. His narration tells us that Crowley sent his best to come find Sam and Dean and try to kill them. And so now Cass is torn. He's saying, now I have another choice. I could reveal myself and save them, or I could keep this up and just not do anything. But he decides to help them out. And so he appears to everyone and kills the demons and saves Sam and Dean. And he says, and for a moment, I was myself again. It's like, oh,
Like himself, like the helpful Cass, perhaps. So cute.
I know. So then to Sam, Dean, and Bobby, Cass is a horrible liar. Like for all of the years he's existed, dude has never learned how to tell a lie.
Yeah, we've already known this like a few episodes ago when he's like, yeah, like yeah, but I don't know why Balthazar did that to the Titanic, you know, or whatever it was.
So weird. That's really,
Yeah,
I don't know.
he's silly. Why would he do that?
Fucking Cass. Yeah, so he's clearly lying just out of his teeth and making shit up. And he's like, oh, Sam and Dean, it's a good thing I found you. I have news. And then they're like, okay. And he's like, I firmly believe that Crowley is alive. Dean's like, okay, no shit, Sherlock.
Yeah, we already knew.
Yeah, so he kind of like scoffs at that. But then they go through this thing where Dean's like, what are y'all going to say to Cass for saving our asses again? And Sam and Bobby both apologize to him, and it's very sincere, I think. Like they really wanted to give him that benefit of the doubt. They thought that this proved it to them. Sam was really sorry, and so was Bobby, and they were like, we owe you an apology, and I know we should have talked to you first, and we trust you, and all of that. And Cass doesn't really, he doesn't handle it very well. In his head, he's saying again, like, and wonders never cease. They trusted me again. And then I think he gets a little cocky and he says, like, he accepts the apology, and then he says, it is a little absurd though. And Bobby's like, I know. And Cass is like, Superman going to the dark side? I'm still just Castiel. What?
Like, why? Like, why, Cass? Come
I
on.
don't know. He's stupid. Because then they immediately know that he's been spying on them because that was said when they didn't think he was around. And that
Right.
should be obvious to
Mhm.
Cass.
Yeah.
So now they get real suspicious all over again, and we see Dean's face, and he's just, he looks like his heart is just like plummeting, and he's like, fuck, you're spying on us.
Yeah. And I think he just kind of like says a throwaway line, to kind of
Oh,
play along with Cass, but
he's like, oh yeah, so we don't need any more kryptonite? And Cass like smiles, and he's like, exactly. It's like, oh, you're so stupid.
it's almost said with like just like a puppy dog face. Like
Mm-hmm.
Cass, so dumb.
Yeah. So then we just cut from that scene. Um, Cass leaves and he goes to Crowley and is pissed because he had sent those demons after the boys. And then Crowley calls Cass out and he starts like really laying it on thick and says, you just are trying to keep up your image because as long as the boys believe your lies, then you get to believe them. And he says, but a whore is a whore is a whore. And that really pisses Cass off.
Mm.
But, and I know he's making this point in a vulgar way, but point taken. Um, what exactly, like Cass may be able to kind of explain himself away and what he's doing, but he's not looking at it objectively and seeing how much of a problem this is and doing anything about it. He's continuing the lies, he's keeping it up. And let me see. So yeah, that really pisses Cass off. He attacks Crowley and throws him up against the tile wall and cracks the tile. And he tells Crowley that if he touches a hair on Sam and Dean's heads, he will tear everything down. He will break apart their deal. He'll fuck everything up, and he is still an angel, and he will bury Crowley. So he's not fucking around with Sam and Dean. Like, if Crowley does anything to hurt them, he's going to be all over it. And then Cass goes back into his thoughts, and we hear the narration again. And he says that he knew he wouldn't survive a straight fight with Raphael. So he says something like, "So I went to the only person who I could ask for help," and we see him, like a flashback of him standing next to Dean when he was with Ben and Lisa, and he's just like innocently raking leaves in the lawn.
So sweet.
I
Oh
know.
my God.
And Cass is just like watching, and you can tell that he's deciding whether or not to disrupt this peaceful life.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he's debating this, and as he's talking to himself about it, Crowley shows up and offers him a deal. And Cass is like, well, first he's like, "What do you want, ass? You know, I don't have a soul. You know, I don't have anything that you can barter with." And Crowley's like, "No, I have this other deal. I'm talking about happy endings for all of us. All possible entendres intended."
Oh my
Pretty
God.
funny.
Yeah.
No. I had to get down the Crowley lines in this one. They were too funny.
He has a lot of horny lines. I think he
Yeah.
has another one, at least one other one later on.
Yeah, at least. He's just constant. So Cass goes with him, but we hear in his narration, Cass tells us that he was prideful and a fool, and he thought that he was smarter than Crowley. So Crowley takes Cass down to the hell that he has created. And his idea of hell is kind of a classic one. You know, I think I've seen this sort of image in other places, but his idea of hell is a very, very, very long line where you show up and take a number and you stand in line just for fucking ever. And Cass is like, "What happens when they get to the end?" And Crowley's like, "You turn around and come back to the beginning."
That's insane.
He's
I was
like,
trying to think about that.
he was like, "Everybody hates waiting in line."
Yes. Although I think like this was before brunches, and it made me think of like that Portlandia. Was it Portlandia? No. It was actually in the Gilmore Girls revival, where there was an episode where fucking what's her name? The main character. Oh my God, I've already forgot. Rory is because she's a journalist and she's assigned a story to do on lines. So like the popularity of lines. So she just goes around the city and like joins different lines. And she's like, "What is this for?" And they're like, "I don't know. Like we just saw this line and we just started standing around in it,
What?
So it's just
That's
like the whole
everybody in
like,
hell. They're like, "I don't know."
yeah, like
We're just
millennials
saying.
would just have fun in this hell, basically.
Look, as long as there's a little free coffee bar and we have our phones, we're fine.
Yeah.
It's so funny. So then, oh yeah, so Crowley asks Cass about Raphael, and Cass is like, "I don't have any choice. Either I'm going to submit to Raphael or I'm going to die." And Crowley's like, "Submit or die? What are you, French?" Just so bad. And just another French joke. It's just, I don't know, catering to that thing.
Mm-hmm.
But oh, I think I wrote that wrong. Crowley tells Cass that he's God's favorite. And he's basically telling Cass, like, has it not occurred to you that God brought you back so that you can be the leader? And, but Cass, he kind of argues with him, and he says, that it would take way more power to overthrow Raphael than either of them have ever seen. But Crowley tells him that they can get that power from purgatory. There are like millions of untapped souls from creatures that are just ripe for the taking. And Crowley suggests that Sam and Dean find the monsters for them so that they can get to purgatory. But Cass is immediately like, "No, Dean is retired and it needs to stay that way." So then Crowley says, "Well, there's a certain big bald patriarch I can take off the bench." So I think that's news too, right? Is that news?
Wait, but okay. I had a question about that. Is he talking about Bobby?
Samuel?
Oh, Samuel. Okay, that makes way more sense. I forgot about him.
I didn't know who he was talking about the first time. I am so totally with you because I mean, maybe it's kind of dumb. I don't know. But the first time I watched it, I was like, who is he talking about? I don't understand. And then the second time it clicked.
Okay. Yes. That makes
It's
a
got to be
lot of
Samuel.
sense. So he brought back Samuel. That makes perfect sense.
Yes. Yeah,
Perfect
but
sense.
what the fuck, too?
But that's insane. So like all of this crazy shit with Samuel, Cass was
Yeah.
connected to it also. I,
Yeah.
I mean, I think like watching it, we were definitely I don't know. I'm kind of thinking, trying to go back. I kind of want to listen to the episodes that we did about the earlier episodes of season 6 and see what
Yeah.
we were thinking. Because, I mean, I don't think that we thought that like Cass was orchestrating everything,
No. No. That did
you
not occur
know?
to us. No, and I'm kind of trying to remember like who we thought brought them back. I don't even think Cass was on the list of people we considered.
No, I think we thought God did because God um like moved Sam that one time, Sam and Dean, out of that airplane or into that airplane.
Right.
So I feel like we thought that, but then we were like, why Samuel? That's strange.
Yeah. Yeah. Where did he come from and why?
Yeah.
So it was fucking Crowley.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so what the fuck? And Cass is like, okay, so what do you want for all of this? And Crowley's such an asshole, and I don't know, maybe Cass is just bad at making deals, but Crowley's like, I just want half. Half? Bitch, how about 15%?
Yeah, Cass is doing all of the work. Yeah, that was interesting to me. It made sense to me that he said like, I want to be, I want to rule over hell,
Mm-hmm.
basically.
And like all these souls are gonna help me do that.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense too, but who the fuck do you think you are? So he tells Cass that he wants half of all the souls to secure his position as the new Lucifer, basically. And Cass is like, well, this is going to take months. And he's like, I know. So even though it could take a while, to show you that I'm serious, I'll front you 50,000 souls from the pit to get you started. Um, so then Crowley tells Cass that God chose him to, quote, save us, which is, those are heavy words. I think maybe he knew what to tell Cass. He was like, you're going to save us, Castiel. God has chosen you to save us. It's like, that's pretty intense.
Yeah.
And then Cass says that he wishes he had been clean of pride at that moment and the next. So the next scene we see Cass showing up to Raphael's heaven, this other guy's heaven that he's in. And he uses the souls that Crowley gave him to do whatever it is he did to Raphael. There's a really bright light. Suddenly, Raphael is gone. He gave him that bitch slap. And then he tells everyone, that all the angels around, that there will be no apocalypse. And he tells them, you're either with Raphael or you're with me. And he walks away. So he starts this civil war in heaven.
Yeah, which I don't think that knew we didn't know any of the details of that. I think we just knew that there was a civil war happening. But it didn't really go into before the fact that he had started it, which it makes sense because of the threats that Raphael was having. And it's hard to know whether or not there was anything else that he could have done. But but yeah, like I kind of could see where Cass is kind of feeling like that was a mistake for him to just show off. Because at the end, like, there's still an issue happening. Like it just does seem like he's kind of showing off and saying like, well, you treated me this way. Well, I'm gonna do the same to you now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of throwing his weight around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. That's problematic. So, back with the guys, Dean calls for Cass, and Cass just immediately appears. Sam says to Cass that they think they've figured out a way to track down Crowley. And Cass is kind of across the room, and he walks over closer to Sam and asks what the plan is. And Bobby stands behind him and he says, "It's you." And he strikes a match and throws it on the ground and lights the ring of holy oil around Cass to trap him. Um, Dean immediately tells him, we got to talk. And he's like, about what? And he's like, about Superman and kryptonite. They start asking him all these questions. How long has he been spying on them? Why is that demon den so unusually clean? How did Crowley trick Cass with the wrong bones? Really great questions.
Mm-hmm.
And Cass struggles to give them an answer. And then Dean tells him to look him in the eye and tell him that he's not working with Crowley. And Cass looks at him and then looks away. And Dean looks so hurt. He's just like shocked. And he says, "This is where we get a son of a bitch." And he's just got this horrible look of shock on his face. And he's like, you've been going after Purgatory together this whole time. And he and Sam and Bobby are all just flabbergasted that he's been doing this. And then Cass asks them to trust him, and they're like, "Trust you? How can we do that now?" And he's like, "Sam, I'm the one who raised you from perdition." So he tells Sam here that he's the one who brought him back from hell. And then Sam gets teary eyed and he's like,
Yeah.
"It was you?" He's like, "Well, you did a pretty piss poor job of it." So he's bitter.
Yeah, he's very upset. But even worse is he's like, wait a second, with
Mm-hmm.
like his eyes glistening because we finally get some
Yeah.
teary eyed Sam.
Yeah, some misty eyes.
And he's like, wait, did you like bring me back Solus on purpose?
Mm-hmm.
But like,
Which, I don't know. I mean, I think looking at, these lines and stuff like we did, I don't think the cast did. But I don't
yeah.
blame Sam for thinking that. Like, suddenly you feel like everything you've known for, the past 2 years or whatever with Cass has been a lie. Like, you don't know what his motives are now. And you're like, wait,
Mhm.
what the fuck? Did you mean to do that?
Yeah, definitely. I don't blame him either, because the cast has been lying to them for now over a year.
Yeah.
For like 2 years now,
Yeah, I
basically. I
don't know.
mean,
I said 2 years, but I don't know exactly how long it's supposed to be, but it's definitely over a year.
yeah, for sure. Um, so yeah, I don't blame him, but it's so sad. Like, Cass, I don't think he actually did do that, and I think that probably just hurt him even more
Mm-hmm.
to think, oh, my friends think of me like this now.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It does seem to like sting him. And Cass doesn't really argue it too much, but then Dean just starts in and he's really hurt that Cass didn't come to him for help and that he instead made a deal with, quote, with the devil. And Cass looks really sad and he says, "It sounds so simple when you say it like that." And he said, "Where were you when I needed to hear that?" They're like having like a moment.
Yes, they are. It is a big moment. And it feels like, I don't know, it feels like Dean's like breaking up with Cass.
I
It's
know, it's like
so
lovers.
it's so sad.
That's fucking terrible.
And I was kind of expecting him to get teary-eyed too, but I feel like he's like right there, but then he doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
right?
No, I don't think he did either.
Yeah.
But yeah, he did seem right there. Um, and then, Cass is like, where were you when I needed to hear that? And Deed said, I was there. And then very suddenly, a bunch of demons are descending on the house outside. We have like the shadows flying through the sky and coming down to the house. And Cass tells them all to run, and they leave him there stuck in that ring of fire. Which is, kind of fucked up, but I think that's what Cass wanted too. They just wanted them to leave. So then the shadows around the house, stop coming down around it, and the door opens and Crowley walks in, and he sees Cass and just like snaps his fingers and puts out the fire around him. And then he starts like admonishing him and telling Cass, like, I think they made my point for me. It's always our friends in the end who hold us back. But then Crowley tells him, what I see here is like the new god and the new devil working together. And Cass has just like had enough. He stops him and very like seriously and angrily tells Crowley to get out of his sight. So Crowley starts to leave, but he says, the difference between you and me is that I know what I am. He's like, what are you, Castiel? And he also tells him, like, what are you willing to do? And then he just leaves. So, I don't know. Great questions. Cass has some soul searching to do, which he's obviously trying to. I don't know how well that's going.
Right.
We cut to Dean sleeping on Bobby's couch, and next to the couch is like the big window with a lot of little window panes, and each window pane has a different like angel proofing symbol in blood on it. But Cass just shows up inside the house, and Dean immediately wakes up and he's like, how are you here? And he's like, well, these angel proofing symbols, y'all got a few things wrong.
Not good, Bobby. Come on. You can do
Yeah,
better.
not great. So he tries to talk to Dean, and he tells Dean that he's doing this for him. It's because of him. And Dean's like, for me, what are you talking about? And he's like, you were the one who taught me about freedom and free will. But Dean cuts him off and he says, freedom doesn't mean that you get to do whatever you want. And he begs Cass not to do this. And he tells him that he's the closest thing he has to family outside of Sam and Bobby, and he's like a brother to him. Dean just says, I'm just asking you to do something, and if I'm asking you to do that, then, and then Cass says, or what? And Dean gets this look on his face. He's like shocked, and he's like, or I'll stop you. I'll do what I have to. And Cass says, you're just a man. I'm an angel. And then Dean responds, he's like, well, I've taken some pretty big fish. And then Cass makes his face like, yeah, that's true. And then Cass says he's sorry. And Dean says, well, I'm sorry too. And Cass disappears. So then we cut to Cass sitting by himself again in the same place that he was in the very beginning on this bench surrounded by snow. He's like next to a river. And he's like, well, that's everything. And then he starts talking to God and he's like, I'm going to ask you one last time. Am I doing the right thing? Did I make the right choice? And then he asks God for a sign. He's like, just give me a sign, because if you don't, I'm going to do whatever I must. And then he looks up at the sky and drops his head, and the episode ends.
Wow.
I know. Yeah, we got a lot here.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's very interesting just his resolve at the very end. I think I really like the bookends of him starting out on the bench and kind of thinking through all of this and just ready to kind of like tell his story and it's almost like it's a confession, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's him confessing to God or to whoever will listen. Because right now Dean's not going to listen. He's just, you know, whoever he does have is not going to be there for him. So he's really just shouting it out to anything, just
Mm-hmm.
out into the void.
Yeah.
Um, and he's like, in the beginning, he's asking like, if I made the wrong choice? But in the end, it's like he's kind of like, no, not no, this is what I have to do. I mean, he's still kind of got that question,
Mm-hmm.
but then at the very end, he's just like, well, I have to do whatever I have to, you know?
Right. Like if I don't get some sort of sign that this is the wrong thing, then I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. It's definitely still a very, God, I don't have like the right words to say this, but like it's just a very like still kind of religious way of thinking where he's not wanting to search within himself for the answer
Mm.
and think through it. He really is just trying to put it on someone or something else
Yeah.
to tell him.
Which is interesting because, we mentioned it earlier. I think we can tell that Cass knows it's not right.
Yeah. Yeah, he totally does.
So why does
So,
why is he asking somebody else? Why does he need something else to tell him this is wrong?
right.
And something other
And
than like Sam, Demon, and Bobby.
yeah, and now that he does have, well, now that he, like you say, now that he has Dean, and they know about it, and they're back in the business, why can't he just ask for help?
Yeah.
They've taken on angels and stuff before, you know?
Yeah, and it seemed like like that's what Dean wanted. Like when they were confronting him in the Ring of Fire, he said something like, um, you should have come to me and we would have just dealt with this. Like that's what we do every time. Like we would just
Hmm.
handle it.
Yeah.
And he wanted to be able to help Cass with that, and he's not letting him.
Yeah, no, he's not. He's just kind of like, well, I'm in too deep.
Hmm.
I need to keep going. And maybe that's where, at this point, it's not that he's doing it for Dean or anybody else anymore. He's doing it for himself. I think he wants that power at this point.
Yeah, that could be. And he feels like it's too far gone, maybe too. So he's like, no, I just gotta keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now
So,
that puts them in this position of Cass and Dean against each other, like
mhm.
quite directly on opposite sides. Are they like fighting each other now? Like is Dean now, gonna be out to try and get Cass?
Yeah,
Because I
exactly.
don't think like Cass isn't gonna go out for them at all. He's probably I could see him still trying to protect them if he's able to.
Mhm.
But now he's being hunted.
Yes. Yeah, he is. Just like they were hunting down Crowley, he's
Mhm.
also being hunted down because they're scared of what purgatory is going to unleash.
Right.
And that was another question that was answered for us, is that the mother of all came from purgatory. I don't recall if that's something that we were already supposed to know or piece together. But I know we had that question last episode, and I'm glad it was answered for us. You know,
Mhm.
where did she come from?
Yeah, that wasn't concrete.
Um, which is just an interesting fact. I mean, that's where she lived. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't. That's really all we know about purgatory. I was looking through the supernatural wiki to see what else has been mentioned about it. If we have any other information to pull from it. Not really. I mean, just that, like, the creatures, when they die, that's where they go. So it really is this land of monsters,
Mm.
you know?
Hmm.
That's what it is.
Got it.
Um, so I don't know.
So, yeah, I guess we'll see where this season ends up. What happens next. I don't know if they're going to try to wrap this up pretty quickly. Since there's now this tension between Dean and Cass, and they would be fighting each other, or just being against each other. I don't know if they're going to try to, deal with that in the story pretty quickly and resolve it, or if it's going to drag out into next season. But I think we just have the one episode left this season, right?
No, we have two.
Okay.
We have 2 episodes. So
So I feel like they could. Like if they could even do it in one episode. So that's plenty of time to, have something happen where we get this figured out pretty quick if they wanted to do that.
right. Um, I really enjoyed this episode. It answered all of these questions that we've had.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of struggling while watching it. I was kind of like, I really love this and I'm really enjoying this. And I'm loving this reveal. But then on the other hand, I would have loved all of these things throughout the season. But that would have, I think that would have kind of like remove some of the mystery behind it, you know? So I was just kind of trying to think through that and how I felt about season 6 as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there could have been some more balance. I think there could have
That's
been
what I
more
was gonna say.
clues and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. As far as just like they didn't have to give any of that away, but um, like I think what we talked about before is just kind of like those clues, like just kind of stringing it together a little bit better through all the episodes. Yeah, I agree. They still could have done that better.
But I think what was so fascinating about this one episode um was that it was like a noir. Um it it felt that way. I think the narrative structure of like Cass telling the story and telling his side of the story, and then we have these flashbacks, like it all fits into like the noir structure.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of like backstabbing and revenge and this and that. And so I think as a standalone episode, not taking into account just like how season 6 and everything was done,
Mm-hmm.
it really worked for me. I loved it.
I agree. There actually wasn't any part of it that didn't work for me, which is unusual.
Yeah. That being said, I haven't looked at the ranking yet. I'm looking at it now.
Same. I don't feel like it's top 10 material.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think the top 10, those are like classic episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And I enjoyed this, and I could even say that I maybe loved it, but I wasn't like, oh, fuck yeah. This episode was amazing. You know what I mean?
yeah, definitely. Yeah, see, Hammer of the Gods, No Rest for the Wicked. Those are episodes that I still, up to Abandon All Hope, The French Mistake. Those are all episodes that I think of when I think of Supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not that I want to jump down there, but I do see like jumping over there. Do we feel that this episode is better than Mommy Dearest? I feel like yes, which is our last episode.
I agree. Actually, I think yes. And we have that up at 23.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see.
And I think I feel the same way about this being better than Appointment in Samara and Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid.
Which one was Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid?
That is the episode where Bobby is we're dealing with Bobby's town and all of the
Okay.
people have come back to life,
Okay.
including his wife.
That's what I thought.
They're all
The
like
zombie one.
zombies. Mm-hmm. I think once we get to Abandon All Hope, I'm like, stop, pump the brakes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of feeling the same way. And I think I liked The French Mistake better. I would suggest it to be the new number 21. Because I liked Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid, but the way that this episode was structured with that sort of, that noir structure that you were talking about, and just the information that we get, and we get that character development that we always want. There were a lot of really amazing individual cast scenes, and individual scenes with some of the other characters, and also Dean and Cass moments. We got a lot of that, so I feel like it's pretty important.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So this one is going in as the new number 21, The Man Who Would Be King, and this one's going in the trunk.
It's funny because I was thinking about like how excited and impressed we were with the last episode, how amazing this episode was. And I'm obviously really hoping that the next two episodes are going to continue that trend. And it was just making me think like how interesting our discussion about season 6 as a whole will be, because I feel like if they leave us off on this good note, then we're going to be feeling that high, but
And
we're
forgetting
going to
all the
have to
parts of it that we didn't like.
yeah, like we're going to have to like remember in our discussion like, wait a second, we were really pissed off like this entire season.
Right. Wait a second, we
Um
disliked most of the episodes in the season.
yeah, a lot of them ended up like pretty low on our list.
They had a lot of competition. We've seen good seasons and more good episodes in a season than we've had here, so that's how it goes.
But I'm really hoping that these next two is just going to leave us off on a really happy note. And then we'll get to that discussion. And I had mentioned in the last episode that a wrap up episode is going to be coming up, that I will be putting out our usual Google form for you guys to submit your thoughts. So I haven't done that yet, but hopefully by the time this comes out, I have it up there. So just check our social media or our website for all of that. But also just write in with your thoughts to our email, because I'm very curious to know if you guys, because we've been complaining and complaining about not knowing Cass's story, if you guys have been like holding your tongue and just like, will you just shut up and just wait for it? Or if you feel the same way, and how you guys feel about season 6 as a whole. I'm very curious to know.
I am too. I've thought that actually as we were going through the episodes, like in some of the conversations we've had, I'm like, they're yelling at at their stereo right now, like they're yelling in the car.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is why. God.
Yeah, don't you know? Oh yeah, you don't know. It's all about purgatory, and
Duh.
you'll find out, guys. Yeah.
And we're like, what
Yeah,
is that?
I would be the same way, for
Oh
sure.
yeah. Same. So yeah, that is going to be a really interesting discussion, and we hope that y'all will chime in, give us some more to talk about, and maybe answer any questions that y'all have from us, about how we've perceived season 6 and experienced it. Other than that, let me see what the next episode is. I always do that.
It's okay. I looked it up.
Oh,
It's
good. Thank
called Let It Bleed.
Thank you. I even saw that on Netflix earlier and I just forgot it. So, next episode, we're going to be talking about Let It Bleed. And until then, y'all probably know where to find us, but a good place to start is our blog, www.highwaytohellpodcast.com, and highway is HWY. We have our episodes on there. We have our blog with every episode, all kinds of goodies. We have a t-shirt if you want to buy a t-shirt. And then we're also on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So give us a follow, find us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a review. Or you can email us at www.highwaytohellpodcast@gmail.com. We like taking questions and comments. Give us your thoughts about season 6. And we may read your email as well and discuss any good points that you bring up. Please bring them up. Other than that, I think that's it. And until next time, we will see you on the highway to hell. Bye.
Bye.